And feeling a lot more positive about the South. I'll probably switch this on next week and I will not feel very positive about myself, but hey, that's life.
The BBC is running a Fighting Fat, Fighting Fit campaign. You can join for £2. First, you'll get a 22-page booklet and money-saving offers. Keep going for 6 months and you could win prizes in our competition. Order your pack by post or phone. Call 0897 55 0055. That's 0897 55 0055. Calls cost a maximum of £2. To order by post, see CFAX page 625.
And there's more in the Fighting Fat, Fighting Fit season in a Horizon special over on BBC Two at 9:30. And you can find out whether you're overweight by inputting your details at the series website at www.bbc.co.uk/education.
Live classical music wherever you are. Opera on 3, Saturday evenings at 6:30. BBC Radio 3. More than just a pile of CDs.
Mom, Parky!
The programme you voted Best Talk Show is back.
It's how a chat show should be done. He talks, then listens, and listens, and then listens and listens and listens, and then talks.
I can remember being 8 or 9 years old, and my mum would allow me to stay up only to watch the Parkinson show.
He beats everyone else hands down, I think.
He's in a class of his own.
So join me and my guests for a brand new series of Parkinson.
Starting tomorrow at 9:30 on BBC One.
Don't miss it.
A time of war.
The trouble with Scotland is that it's full of Scots.
A time of passion.
You tell your king, William Wallace will not be ruled, and nor will any Scot while I live.
The story of one man's fight for his country's freedom. Mel Gibson is Braveheart in half an hour on BBC One.
Meet an Anglo-Saxon warrior complete with shield, spear, sword and horse preserved in Suffolk mud for nearly 1400 years. He might just be one of your ancestors. Find out in a minute over on BBC Two. This is BBC One and time for the 9 o'clock news with Michael Buerk.
An American president has gone on trial for the first time in more than a century. The Senate sworn in to decide whether Bill Clinton should be thrown out of the White House for lying and obstructing justice. Borrowers here are better off after interest rates fall again. And England's intensive care service is in critical condition as the flu outbreak reaches its peak. Good evening. The American Senate has begun its first trial to impeach a president for more than 130 years. It will sit in judgment on whether Bill Clinton should be removed from office for perjury and obstructing justice in covering up his affair with Monica Lewinsky. A majority of at least 2/3 of the members of the Senate are required to vote him out of the White House. But they're still arguing tonight about how the trial should be conducted.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All persons are commanded to keep silent on pain of imprisonment.
History in the making. The Republican prosecution team filed into the Senate to start what some are calling the real trial of the century.
Senate be in order.
Presiding over the Senate, 96-year-old Strom Thurmond. Even he wasn't around for the last trial of a president in 1868. Today, the two impeachment charges were presented by their chief author.
William Jefferson Clinton has undermined the integrity of his office, has brought disrepute on the presidency, has betrayed his trust.
In closed-door meetings away from the public formalities, senators, Republican and Democrat, argued over a basic question. What will the trial of Bill Clinton look like? Will there be witnesses? If so, how many? How long will it last? I spoke to one leading moderate Republican senator.
It's important to the American public and to our responsibilities under the Constitution to make sure that an appropriate trial is conducted, that it is done as quickly as is reasonably possible and fair, and that we should not just make decisions based upon the public's opinion.
Moments later, the dramatic arrival in the Senate chamber of America's top judge, William Rehnquist, who will preside over the Clinton trial.
Will you place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand?
First, Judge Rehnquist was sworn in, and then the 100 senators, the jurors who will decide the president's fate, swore to do their duty. It was a somber reminder of the high stakes. Each one signed a pledge in the well of the Senate.
Mr. Bunning.
A mile away, inside the White House, no comment from the president, now on trial. But this was a day he must have dreaded. The White House wants a quick trial without witnesses, but however it's handled, it'll do this president's reputation no good. Members of the American public, still largely supportive of Bill Clinton, queued up to visit the Senate, to witness a slice of history. It looks as if the trial proper will start next week and last a month. The crowds will get bigger as the president's fate is decided. Stephen Sacker, BBC News, Washington.
Well, Stephen Sacker joins me now from Capitol Hill. Stephen, when are we going to know what shape and form this trial is going to take?
Michael, things could be much clearer within an hour or so, because there will be a vote on the Senate floor very soon in which we believe the Republican majority will essentially set the tone for the trial. They want a trial to last about a month or 6 weeks, they're saying. They want a vote taken on every witness that is called. That is to give the Democrats a chance to vote down any particular witness. But of course the Republicans have the majority, so that's unlikely. And the message we're getting is that the Republicans feel there can be no real trial without witnesses. That of course is bad news for the White House, because the White House would rather get this over in a few days or a week or two without any witnesses at all. It looks as though that is not going to happen.
So in your judgment, is it likely that Bill Clinton and perhaps even Monica Lewinsky will actually have to give evidence in person before this trial?
Well, that's the key question, and to be frank, it's impossible to answer it at the moment, but my guess is that it's looking more and more likely that Monica Lewinsky, for one, the woman at the center of this whole affair, is likely to take the stand and to appear before the Senate, for the only reason that she is central to the whole case. Bill Clinton is charged with lying before the grand jury. In a sense, it is one of those classic he said, she said discussions or disputes where she says things happen that Bill Clinton denies. So in essence, she has to appear to tell her story, and one would think that Bill Clinton too might well be subpoenaed to give his story before senators. That of course would be explosive, highly damaging to the president, and something the White House is desperate to avoid. At the moment, nobody knows whether Mr. Clinton will appear, but it's certainly a possibility.
Stephen Sacker, thanks very much. Here, interest rates have fallen for the fourth month in a row. The Bank of England's cut of 0.25% brings base rates down to 6%. Homeowners with variable rate mortgages will be better off. Many major lenders have already lowered their rates. Savers, who will see a drop in interest payments, aren't happy, but manufacturers have welcomed the news.
For C.W. Taylor Foundries in South Shields, the 4 rate cuts in as many months have offered a glimpse of light at the end of the tunnel. The high pound has meant they've lost out to European rivals. But since the end of last year, lower interest rates have meant a weaker pound. And today's cut is more good news.
This latest cut in interest rates is excellent for us, because over this past year we've had a very, very difficult time in maintaining our business, and we now see every opportunity to expand our business over the years ahead.
The latest cut in mortgage rates will save someone with a £60,000 mortgage £12 a month on their payments. Retailers hope that'll encourage consumers to start spending again. In a statement, the bank said it had cut rates again because of the weakness of the British economy, saying since the committee's December meeting, domestic data and survey evidence have, on balance, shown a continuing slowdown. But the other thing that's changed since December is the birth of Europe's new single currency, the euro. And our interest rates are still twice the level in the eurozone. In theory, that shouldn't matter to the Bank of England.
Their aim is to secure 2.5% inflation in the United Kingdom. And they set interest rates precisely on that basis, aiming at an inflation target. And I don't think they take much notice of interest rates in Europe or the United States or anywhere else for that matter.
But the foreign exchange markets may mean that the Bank of England can't just ignore what's going on across the Channel.
We do have to take care not to get interest rates too far out of line with, in particular, the Eurozone because that could tend to push the value of the pound up. If their interest rates fell too much, ours stayed high, we'd find that our goods were being priced out of the market.
At the moment, conditions at home and overseas are pointing the Bank of England in the same direction. With inflation low and falling, the gap between our interest rates and European rates can close. Rates over here could very easily be down to 5% by the end of the year. But one day, the Bank of England may find that the decision on rates has been taken for it by the European Central Bank in Frankfurt. Ed Crooks, BBC News, at the Bank of England.
Doctors are calling for an urgent increase in funding for intensive care units. Pressure on hospital beds is increasing throughout the country, although the emergency bed service says there's been a slight increase in the number of beds available. The Health Secretary, Frank Dobson, said the situation was difficult, but denied that it was of the government's making.
They've never been this busy in intensive care at South Cleveland Hospital. The unit, like most others in the country, is full. One patient was sent here from 80 miles away. The doctor in charge, Paul Lawler, says his unit is under siege. He's president of the Intensive Care Society, which represents specialist professionals throughout the country. And tonight he called on the government to fund a major expansion of their work.
We would not transfer patients between intensive care unless there's a clear need for intensive care beds. That shows that there is a genuine crisis. We need an increase of 10% intensive care beds. That is not a huge number, and at the same time, it puts us still probably at the bottom of the league in Europe.
Reports from the emergency bed service today indicate a slight lessening of pressure on intensive care, with up to 24 free beds available in England, although the situation changes by the minute. The Health Secretary said it had been right to issue a warning.
Well, it's certainly very difficult, and it's very difficult in certain particular places where there has been a big surge in the number of people who are ill. That sometimes includes the National Health Service staff, of course, and therefore reduces the capacity of the hospitals to cope.
Refrigerated lorries acting as temporary mortuaries are becoming a familiar, if grim, sight around an overstretched NHS. These containers at Derbyshire Royal Infirmary are being used because the hospital's own mortuary is full. At the Queen Alexandra Hospital in Portsmouth, so great are the pressures, so scarce the staff, that they've asked relatives to come in and help wash, feed and, if appropriate, shave their loved ones.
A lot of relatives want to do that. Certainly many wives want to help continue to care for their husbands when they're in hospital. All we've done is merely say, we have a problem. If you can help at this moment, we'd appreciate it.
Nursing shortages have also hit Torbay. Because so many staff have been struck down with flu, the hospital is now appealing for anyone with nursing qualifications to help them cope. The problem with this crisis is that the needs are immediate, the solutions long-term. The government is going to fund more intensive care beds, but that will also mean more specialist nurses, and for now they are few and far between. In the meantime, the health service and its patients will just have to struggle on. Neil Dixon, BBC News, at the Department of Health.
President Kaba of Sierra Leone has declared an immediate 7-day ceasefire in an attempt to end the latest outbreak of civil war there.